Hey, shalom, y'all. Hey, guys, it's Fletch. Welcome back to OTH. And what you're looking at right now is this is a custom-made trailer that a friend blessed me with not long ago. And the issue that I've had with this trailer is that the wiring was hanging down below it. It didn't have like an internal passageways anywhere. And so this is like my trash trailer and recycling trailer. But, you know, here's the menagerie of wires that was under there. And it also had, old school wiring harness like this. And obviously, most things don't have that anymore. So trying to make that work was always a huge pain in the butt. And so I thought I'd just show you real quick. Actually, rewiring a trailer, guys, is really pretty easy. You can buy these wiring kits at Walmart and such, but basically, the flat 4 is, the stereotypical wiring nowadays for smaller trailers. And these are your control wires here, the yellow and the 2 browns and the green. Green is almost always your right turn. Brown is almost always, yellow is almost always your left turn. And then the browns are just your running lights. And then the white is almost always your ground. And so right now I got this pulled through, and what I've been using is just some self-tapping screws like this, and a good powerful drill like my cobalt drill. And it self-taps and then threads a hole into the frame, and then you're ready to go. And so this will be my ground when I'm done with that, and my ground will go there, and then I'll paint over that once I've got it seated real good. But what I did, and I'll kind of give you a look here, is I'm using, in my local market, I could not find any 1/2 inch EMT conduit, as well as the junction boxes that I need. And so here's the T that I needed for it. And so what I'm doing is I'm running my wiring inside of this conduit here. And what I'm getting ready to do is, I'll just hook this up, glue that to that, and then if you look underneath, what I've been using is galvanized strapping. And you can kind of see it there in the center of the camera with the self-tapping screws, and that runs all the way back. And then I had accidentally banged into one of the lights with my zero-turn mower, trying to mow too close. And so I ordered some of these new LED lights off of Amazon, and pretty much the width right here of these 2 bolts that mount on your mount place on your trailer are pretty standardized. You can see that there. And so I'll just put that in there and hook up the wires. And as you can see, right, they're color coded. This is the right one. So we've got a white ground, we've got a green, and we got a brown. And so we'll just hook those up, and I'll show you what I'm using. It's kind of a neat system that I'm using with this to hook them together. But guys, it's really pretty easy to rewire your trailer. And so far all I've done, guys, is just, ran this 10-foot stick of conduit, the PV style conduit. It is meant for outdoor use. Ran that all the way down the frame, glued in the T there, and then fished my wires through. And so I'll show you what else I'm doing here as I go. Okay, so here we are. I've got the these 2 posts right here that I was showing you. And so I'll just take a 7/16 wrench or socket and tighten those up. And then all I've got to do is connect the wires here to the wires coming out of the conduit there. and I'll show you that here in a second. But what I did want to show you real quick also was that what I'm going to do here with the ground is I'll take my grinder and I'll clean off a spot here to make sure that I get, you know, a really good ground right there, and then that way hopefully it won't be in a situation to where it is well, water pooling on it, I guess, is the big deal. Plus, I can easily see it, and I know whether or not it stays grounded. And I'll tell you, guys, probably a lot of people will tell you that you probably don't need these ground wires back here. But I can also tell you that a lot of times the problems that people have with the trailer lights not working are actually grounding issues and not necessarily the wiring itself. Right? It's not because you're not getting current to where you need it to be. It's because the system's not properly grounded. So having a really good ground all throughout your system does in fact greatly diminish the opportunity for trailer light problems. So I'll show you the rest of this as we go. All right, so here's something else I wanted to share with you guys. See right here where the wiring, there's a little knockout or detent on the back of the housing here, so that this can fit flush up against the back of the trailer piece here. But what happens is, see, the wires are designed to go right through there. Well, that's a natural wear point or vibration, whatever, and you could end up grounding out here. And so an easy and simple fix for that is you can kind of, you know, pull the wires through similar to how it would be, mark it, then get you some of this, right, the heat shrink, and put that over your wires, and then that will provide some extra strength to those wires, so over time that you know, they won't get worn through on that. So just a little thing that you can do that'll help. All right, so I got my heat gun warming up, and I've got my shrink wrap or shrink shield on there, and this is basically a plastic coating that's designed to help protect the insulation on a wire, as well as if you solder two wires together so that it creates a weather tight seal on there. So we're going to take advantage of it right now just to kind of reinforce the see how it just kind of shrinks down on there. So anytime that you do connections, sorry, I'm trying to do this with one hand and record as well, but what we're after is to get that shrunk on there real well so that it'll help protect those wires as they're riding in there. And if you didn't already know, whenever you do this, you want to make sure that you not try to touch or move the wires or pull them through conduit or anything, or opening right after you've put your heat shrink on there, because it becomes really soft and pliable, and it doesn't actually do what it's designed to do until after it's cooled off. So just so you know. Okay guys, I didn't have a tripod handy as I was doing this, but right now I'm getting ready to do the ground for the whole system. You know, this is coming off the 4-prong plug for a trailer. And as you can see right here, I soldered that on there, and it's a real good idea. Usually there's one right there, a little plastic covering that goes on there, because a lot of people, what they'll do is they'll just crimp that on there and call it good. But if you'll solder it on there, it'll last a lot longer, and you'll have a lot better connection over time. And so that's what I've done here. And as you can see, you know, you just see a little bit of the copper sticking through there, but that joint is fully soldered, so we're good to go. All right, so here I've got my ground done. You can see where I ground that all off, and then I made sure that, you know, part of this was far enough underneath there. And then what I'll do to help protect everything, obviously, is I'll paint this, to make sure that it's all covered up and to provide some protection for the electrical connection there. Okay, so here's another neat little idea or hint. If you're doing wiring, which obviously you're doing if you're wiring a trailer, sorry about that. These are called the company that makes these is called Wirefly, and they are a solder and seal butt connection. So rather than, you know, when you're hooking together two wires like this, right here's the end of my wires coming out of the conduit over there underneath the trailer, and then you know, just hook up the green to the green, brown to the brown, right? But typically what you do is you'd slide this inside of there, and then you'd use a crimper and you'd crimp it. Or, you know, you would put them together with a butt solder or a butt joint, and then take the shielding off and solder it. That would be another really good solid way of doing it. However, what I found is that these are pretty easy and foolproof. So basically what you're going to do is you slide this into both sides, and if you look right there, that is like a little piece of solder. And so what you do is you make sure that both sides of your wire are inside that little area where the solder is, and hit it with a heat gun. That solder will run, it will mix in with the wires and make a permanent connection. Then what will also happen is that the rest of this will heat shrink around your wire, and then these little red things here, there's silicone in there, and it will actually seal off the wire on both ends. And so hopefully this is going to give us a really nice, good long-term solution to doing that. If I didn't have these, what I would do is I would use a butt crimper. I would take the plastic sheathing off it first, make sure I use the crimper properly, right, so that it gets a good bite on it. And just look on YouTube if you don't know what I'm talking about. There is a right and a wrong way of doing it. Then I would solder it, and after I was soldered, I would, you know, slide my shrink wrap tubing down, and then, you know, shrink it on top of it. All right, so here's what our wires look like when we're done. You can see it acts as a shrink tube as well as also a soldered butt joint. And so we've got both of those done. So this side is done. And now I'm just going to add another bracket here to support that. And we did our ground as well. We sanded this off, so we got metal to metal contact, and then we'll hit that with some black spray paint or primer. I'm not sure what I have around right now, but that'll help protect all of this from the elements. And we're just gonna do the other side. All right, so here we are on the left side, and as you can see, we've got everything together. And again, our ground wire here, and we cleared it off first with the grinder, so that make sure we got a good metal to metal connection on that ground wire. And we just use a self-tapping screw like I showed you earlier. One other thing I did want to mention to you guys is that if you see on the inside of this conduit tube here, get this out of the way here, on the inside of this, you want to make sure that you use a reamer to ream the inside lip of this, because if you don't, eventually the vibration, right, of this, that'll be secured a little better here in a minute, but still it'll vibrate a little bit, you know, these wires bouncing up and down. And you want to make sure that you ream the inside lip of this, like you can see right there how the edge is cut off on the inside, and that'll help keep the wires from getting ate through on that from the vibration. All right, guys, this is what I'm talking about with strapping. You see, this is galvanized strapping, and that's really important because it's meant for outside use. And yes, you know, there are different things you could use, like EMT tubing strapping, or anchors, you know, things like that you could use. However, you know, the PVC conduit doesn't weigh anything, so you know, this is perfectly fine as far as the weight restrictions on this goes. It's actually you know, pretty tough. It can hold a lot of weight, so you know, it's more than good enough for this application. And I just wanted to make sure I mentioned that to you guys. Make sure absolutely positive it's galvanized and not just tinned or something like that. You know, so it's more like a sheet metal product rather than actually being galvanized. So there you are. And the point or the purpose of having this, you know, all the trailer wiring inside the conduit is because a lot of times I'm out using this trailer in the forest and whatnot, gathering up rounds that I've cut up and whatnot. And a lot of times when you're driving through the forest, there's saplings and different things like that, you know, briars from blackberries and things. And those can definitely tear up your wiring real quick. And so with this, and you can see, you know, how I've got it strapped up, you know, there, here, and all the way down, you know, the center beam going all the way down out on the tongue. And so that's going to protect the wiring over time. But this right here also, well, the purpose of this here also having the T-junction box is that if I ever needed to or wanted to, I could take that cover off right there and get access to the wiring to help pull a new wire through. And I could just leave this conduit in place and replace the wiring at a later time if I ever wanted or needed to. All right, guys, and we're done. And as you can see, we got a flash there, and we got a flash there. We just put the flashers on. So if you're doing this by yourself, you don't have to keep running back and forth. Just turn on your emergency flashers. And if they flash, then, you know, pretty much your blinkers are going to work just fine too. And these happen to be the LED lights rather than bulbs because they should, quote unquote, right, last longer. And here's another thing that I like to do when I wire a trailer is leave a little bit extra wire here and then just run a zip tie around it, and that'll keep it from hanging down and hopefully, you know, getting hung up on something at a later time. But yeah, everything is working great, and we got her all wired up. And there's Montana. Move, Montana, move, go, move. She's 100 pounds, she don't move. All right, and so, you know, here's our wiring coming out of the conduit underneath, and I made sure I set this back far enough so if I set this down on the ground, this isn't dragging on the ground or taking the weight of the trailer to crush it. And there is my system ground there, and we got her all plugged in and everything is good to go. And yes, before I leave, I'll cross one of those under the other as well. But right now I'm just going to pull it out of the garage and get so that I can take it to the dump in the morning. So thanks for joining me today, guys. I hope you learned something about wiring trailers. You know, the wiring kits can be bought at Walmart for around $20 or something like that. And then, you know, the light kits, like the LED light kits, they're around $20-ish, something like that as well. So, you know, for around $40 and some connectors here and there, you know, you can rewire your trailer as well. Well, thanks for joining me today, guys. I hope you're having a blessed and wonderful day. We'll talk to you soon. Shalom.